Welcome to Lifelong Echoes, where we explore the remarkable stories of people who changed our world forever. Today, we discover the extraordinary life of Rosa Parks, a quiet seamstress whose simple refusal to give up her seat on a city bus sparked a revolution that transformed America forever. This is the story of how one woman's courage became the thread that helped stitch a broken nation back together. On February 4, 1913, in the small town of Tuskegee, Alabama, a baby girl was born who would one day sit down to stand up for justice. Her name was Rosa Louise Macaulay. Rosa entered a world where the color of your skin determined everything, where you could live, where you could work, where you could go to school, and even where you could sit on a bus. Rosa's early years were marked by both love and hardship. When she was just 2 years old, her parents separated, and her mother, Leona, moved Rosa and her younger brother, Sylvester, to live with their grandparents on a small farm in Pine Level, Alabama. Rosa's grandfather, Sylvester Edwards, was a proud man who refused to be intimidated by anyone. He would sit on his front porch with a shotgun across his lap, protecting his family from the Ku Klux Klan members who sometimes rode through their neighborhood at night, terrorizing black families. Young Rosa would lie in bed, listening to her grandfather's stories of slavery and his determination to live as a free man. "I remember being afraid of white people," Rosa later wrote, "but I was taught never to let anyone mistreat me. My grandfather and my mother taught me to have pride in myself and to believe that I was as good as anyone else." Rosa's mother, Leona, was a teacher who believed deeply in the power of education. She taught Rosa to read before she started school and filled their small home with books. But the schools available to black children in rural Alabama were terrible. One-room buildings with no windows, no heat, and books that were falling apart. The white children in town rode buses to modern schools with libraries, laboratories, and trained teachers. Rosa and other black children walked miles to their run-down school, sometimes in dangerous weather, while empty school buses for white children passed them by. This daily reminder of inequality planted seeds of determination in young Rosa's heart. When Rosa was 11, her mother sent her to Montgomery, Alabama, to attend a private school for black girls called the Montgomery Industrial School for Girls. The school was run by white Northern teachers who believed that black children deserved the same quality education as white children. At this school, Rosa learned not just reading, writing, and arithmetic, but something more valuable. She learned that she had worth and dignity, regardless of what segregation laws said about her. Her teachers taught her that change was possible and that educated black women could help lead that change. But Rosa's education was interrupted when she was 16. First, her grandmother became ill and needed care. Then her mother fell sick. Rosa left school to work and take care of her family, giving up her own dreams to serve others, a pattern that would define much of her life. In 1932, at age 19, Rosa married Raymond Parks, a barber who was 10 years older than her. Raymond was unusual for a black man in Alabama at that time. He was politically active and refused to be intimidated by white supremacists. He encouraged Rosa to finish her high school education, which she did in 1933, becoming one of the few black women in Montgomery with a high school diploma. Raymond introduced Rosa to the work of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. Together, they attended meetings where black citizens planned ways to challenge segregation laws. Rosa learned about legal strategies, voter registration, and peaceful protest methods that would later prove crucial in her own activism. Rosa found work as a seamstress, first in people's homes and later at Montgomery Fair department store. Every day she rode the city buses to work, experiencing firsthand the humiliation of segregation. Black passengers had to pay their fare at the front of the bus, then get off and re-enter through the back door. Sometimes the bus driver would drive away before black passengers could reboard, taking their money but leaving them stranded. In 1943, Rosa became one of the first women to join the Montgomery chapter of the NAACP. She was elected secretary, a position she held for 12 years. As secretary, Rosa documented cases of violence and discrimination against black citizens, interviewing victims and their families to build legal cases for civil rights lawyers. Rosa's work with the NAACP put her in contact with some of the most important civil rights leaders of the time. She worked closely with E.D. Nixon, the president of the Montgomery NAACP, investigating cases where black women had been sexually assaulted by white men, crimes that were rarely prosecuted in the Jim Crow South. One of the most important cases Rosa worked on involved Ressie Taylor, a young black woman who was kidnapped and assaulted by 6 white men in 1944. Rosa helped organize the Committee for Equal Justice, which demanded that the attackers be prosecuted. Although the men were never punished, the campaign brought national attention to the violence faced by black women in the South. Through her NAACP work, Rosa also became involved in voter registration efforts. At that time, black citizens faced enormous obstacles when trying to vote. They had to pass literacy tests designed to be impossible, pay poll taxes they couldn't afford, and often face violence at polling places. Rosa herself tried to register to vote 3 times before finally succeeding in 1945. Rosa's quiet determination and careful record-keeping made her an invaluable member of the civil rights community. She wasn't a fiery speaker like some activists, but her steady, thoughtful approach earned respect from both black and white civil rights supporters. In the summer of 1955, Rosa attended a workshop in the Highlander Folk School in Tennessee, where activists from around the South gathered to learn about organizing techniques and nonviolent resistance. This experience strengthened Rosa's belief that change was possible and gave her practical skills she would soon need. Thursday, December 1st, 1955, started like any other day for Rosa Parks. She woke up in her small apartment, had breakfast with her husband Raymond, and went to work at Montgomery Fair Department Store, where she worked as a seamstress and also did alterations for customers. After a long day at work, Rosa was tired. Her shoulders ached from hunching over a sewing machine, and her feet hurt from standing all day. At 5:30 p.m., she walked to Court Square to catch the Cleveland Avenue bus home, the same bus route she had taken thousands of times before. The bus was crowded that evening. Rosa paid her fare and found a seat in the first row of the colored section, the area where black passengers were allowed to sit. She was seated next to the window, with a black man beside her and 2 black women across the aisle. As the bus continued its route, more white passengers got on. Soon the white section was full. When a white man got on and couldn't find a seat, the bus driver, James Blake, ordered Rosa and the other 3 black passengers in her row to give up their seats. This was the way segregation worked on Montgomery buses. If white passengers needed seats, black passengers had to stand, even if they had been sitting in the colored section. The 3 other black passengers reluctantly stood up and moved toward the back of the bus. But Rosa Parks didn't move. "Are you going to stand up?" Blake demanded. Rosa looked at him calmly and said, "No, I don't think I should have to stand up." Blake threatened to call the police. Rosa replied, "You may do that." Within minutes, 2 police officers boarded the bus. One of them asked Rosa why she didn't stand up. She responded with a question of her own. "Why do you all push us around?" The officer replied, "I don't know, but the law is the law, and you're under arrest." As Rosa was fingerprinted and photographed at the Montgomery police station, word of her arrest spread quickly through the black community. E.D. Nixon, her colleague from the NAACP, bailed her out of jail and immediately realized that Rose's case could be the test case they had been looking for to challenge bus segregation in court. Rosa was the perfect plaintiff for such a challenge. She was a respectable, law-abiding citizen with a clean record and strong connections in the community. She was married, employed, and active in her church. Most importantly, she was willing to fight the case all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. That same evening, civil rights leaders held an emergency meeting. They decided to organize a one-day boycott of Montgomery buses for Monday, December 5, the day of Rosa's trial. They printed thousands of leaflets asking black citizens to walk, take taxis, or find other transportation rather than ride the buses. The leaflet read, "Don't ride the bus to work, to town, to school, or any place Monday, December 5. If you work, take a cab or share a ride or walk. Come to a mass meeting Monday at 7 p.m. at the Holt Street Baptist Church for further instruction." On Monday morning, something remarkable happened. The buses that usually carried thousands of black passengers to work were nearly empty. Black citizens filled the streets, walking to work in their best clothes, sharing car rides and taking taxis whose drivers had agreed to charge only bus fare. At her trial that morning, Rosa was found guilty of violating segregation laws and fined $14. But the real victory was happening on the streets outside. The boycott was working better than anyone had dreamed possible. That evening, thousands of people packed into Holt Street Baptist Church for a mass meeting. A young pastor named Martin Luther King, Jr., who had been chosen to lead the newly formed Montgomery Improvement Association, gave a speech that would launch him to national prominence and establish the principles of the civil rights movement. What was planned as a one-day boycott became a 381-day journey of determination and sacrifice. The Montgomery bus boycott became the first large-scale demonstration against segregation in the American South, and it succeeded because ordinary people made extraordinary sacrifices. Black domestic workers walked miles to clean white people's homes. Students walked to school in all kinds of weather. Elderly people who had never owned cars learned to organize carpools. Some white employers, realizing they needed their black workers, began giving them rides to work. The boycott was not easy. Black citizens faced harassment,
violence, and economic pressure. Rosa and Raymond both lost their jobs. Their phone rang constantly with death threats. Someone threw a brick through their living room window. The stress was so great that Raymond suffered a nervous breakdown. Martin Luther King Jr.'s house was bombed. E.D. Nixon's home was also attacked. Many boycott leaders were arrested on trumped-up charges, but the black community remained united and determined. The boycott also revealed the economic power of black citizens. Montgomery's bus system was losing thousands of dollars every day. Downtown stores lost customers because many black shoppers had no way to get to the shopping district. Some white business owners began pressuring city officials to end segregation simply to restore their profits. Meanwhile, Rosa's legal case worked its way through the courts. NAACP lawyers argued that bus segregation violated the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which guaranteed equal protection under law for all citizens. On November 13, 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on Montgomery buses was unconstitutional. The boycott had achieved its goal through the combination of mass protest, legal action, and economic pressure.
The success of the Montgomery bus boycott made Rosa Parks famous around the world, but it also made life in Montgomery dangerous for her and her family. They received constant death threats, and both Rosa and Raymond struggled to find work in Alabama. In 1957, Rosa, Raymond, and Rosa's mother moved to Detroit, Michigan, hoping to find better opportunities and escape the violence of the South. But life in the North was also difficult. Rosa struggled to find steady work and often took whatever jobs she could find: seamstress, hospital aide, hostess in a guest house. Despite financial hardships, Rosa continued her civil rights work. She participated in the March on Washington in 1963, where Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. She walked with Dr. King in Selma, Alabama, and supported civil rights campaigns across the country. In 1965, Rosa began working for Congressman John Conyers in Detroit, a job she held for 23 years. This steady employment finally gave her the financial security she had never had before. She used her position to help other people, assisting with housing problems, Social Security issues, and civil rights cases. Rosa also became a popular speaker, traveling around the world to talk about civil rights and the power of nonviolent resistance. She spoke to students, telling them that they had the power to change the world just as she had. In 1987, Rosa co-founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development, which provided career training for young people and taught them about civil rights history. Rosa believed that young people needed to understand their history in order to continue the work of creating a more just society. As Rosa aged, she received numerous honors recognizing her contribution to American history. In 1996, President Bill Clinton awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor given to civilians. In 1999, she received the Congressional Gold Medal, making her the first woman to receive this honor. But Rosa always insisted that she wasn't special. She was just an ordinary person who got tired of accepting injustice. She explained about that day on the bus, "I was not tired physically, or no more tired than I usually was at the end of a working day. I was tired of giving in." Rosa Parks died on October 24, 2005, at age 92. Her death was mourned around the world. She became the first woman and only the second African American to lie in honor at the U.S. Capitol, where thousands of people came to pay their respects. At her funeral, thousands gathered to remember the quiet seamstress who had changed history. Aretha Franklin sang, and speakers from around the world praised Rosa's courage and determination. Rosa Parks teaches us that heroes come in all forms. Sometimes they're quiet seamstresses, not just famous leaders or powerful politicians. Her story shows us that one person, acting with courage and dignity, can indeed change the world. Rosa's refusal to give up her seat was not just about where to sit on a bus. It was about human dignity, equal rights, and the belief that all people deserve to be treated with respect. Her simple act of defiance helped tear down the walls of segregation and open doors for future generations. Most importantly, Rosa Parks reminds us that we don't have to wait for someone else to make change happen. Each of us has the power to stand up, or in Rosa's case, stay seated, for what is right. Rosa once said, "You must never be fearful about what you are doing when it is right." Her life proves that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they have the courage to act on their convictions. Thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey through Rosa Parks' remarkable life. Remember, you don't need to be famous or powerful to make a difference. You just need to have the courage to do what is right when the moment comes. Don't forget to subscribe to Lifelong Echoes for more inspiring stories that help you learn English while discovering the extraordinary lives of extraordinary people.